A $2 billion rent-to-own program here in Canada. Let's break it down and figure out if this will actually solve affordability. I'm Michael Ouzas. I'm a realtor in the Greater Toronto Area, and let's talk about what was recently announced as Canada's $2 billion rent-to-own program. This program was actually announced when the Liberal Party was going through elections. This was part of their fair housing for everybody. So let's jump right into it here, and this is on the liberal.ca website. This talks about a new rent-to-own program, and it says it takes time to save enough money to buy a home. Rent is one of the largest household expenses, and right now there are few options for people to leverage the rent they pay towards a home purchase. Before we continue, if you could take a moment to comment down below on if you think a rent-to-own program will be the solution to affordability for some Canadians. A re-elected Liberal government, which of course we know they were re-elected, will introduce a new rent-to-own program to help make it easier for renters to get on the path towards home ownership while renting. The program will be designed based on three principles. The landlord must commit to charging a renter a lower than market rate to help Canadians build up savings for a down payment. The landlord must commit to ownership in a 5-year term or less, and proper safeguards will be in place to protect the future homeowner. They also want to create a stream for current renters and landlords, particularly those in condo settings, to immediately enter a rent-to-own agreement. And they want to commit $1 billion, now it's $2 billion I guess, in loans and grants to develop and scale up rent-to-own projects with private, not-for-profit, and co-op partners. Now the first thing that jumps out to me here is that the landlord will be taking a lower than market rent in order for the tenant to help save the down payment. The landlord must commit to ownership in a 5-year term or less. So now the other thing that stands out is they can set the price for 5 years down the road. As we jump over to the Financial Post here, it says Canada fund rent-to-own program under $2 billion housing plan. Funding would go towards creating some 17,000 new homes across the country. So Canada is moving ahead with the rent-to-own housing program. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said on Tuesday, which would have been August the 30th, as he set out $2 billion worth of spending towards a previously announced plan to double home building over the next decade. The funding earmarked in previous budgets would go towards creating some 17,000 new homes across the country, including more rapid housing for the homeless, those at risk of becoming homeless, along with affordable and market rate housing product. The program would also help housing providers develop and pilot a new rent-to-own model aimed at creating a path for Canadians transitioning from renting to buying their first home. For a lot of renters, saving to buy a home is increasingly difficult. Through this new program, we'll work with housing providers to help families go from renting to owning their home. As we jump over to global news, it says rent to own a path to homeownership for some, but not a magic solution. So the question is, what is rent to own? And is it actually a suitable path to homeownership for Canadians struggling to enter the housing market? Advocates say the model offers promises to Canadians with damaged credit who are unable to secure mortgages from traditional lenders, but others caution it's not a magic solution to turn today's renters into tomorrow's owners. So here's where I thought this article really stands out compared to the others is it breaks down what exactly rent-to-own is, and the rent-to-own model varies depending on who's setting the terms, but it generally seems renters enter into agreements with their landlords or an investor to purchase their current home at a set price at a future time, usually up to 5 years from the contract date. The purchase agreement can be a firm commitment or an option at the end of the lease, but it comes with a set price on the home, offering predictability to both the renter and the owner. Renters pay an upfront fee at this point, representing a portion of the eventual down payment on the home. The rest of the down payment is usually accumulated through additional savings paid regularly on top of the monthly rent. During the time a tenant is renting, they're responsible for maintenance and upgrades as though they own the unit, but that gives them the opportunity to paint walls or even change countertops and other home fixtures as they like. One thing that stood out here was Hanif Bayat, the founder and CEO of real estate guide Wawa.ca, told Global News in an email that Ottawa's rent-to-own program will probably have a minimal impact on housing affordability in Canada. He says that building incentives will most likely be used by developers who already had plans to build units and therefore won't give a net boost in housing supply needed to make homes more affordable across the country. Moshe Lander, economist with Concordia University, agrees that federal policies must incentivize municipal approvals for new builds to make a dent on housing affordability in Canada. Now, this is quite a lengthy article, and I would recommend going to check it out on your own so you can kind of get a really good scope of the rent to own model, and it does actually interview a company that's been doing it over in Alberta. So definitely check that out. So a few things stick out to me in these articles, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on them. So comment down below on if you think this will actually be a solution. Now, when I think about these, I'm wondering, for example, if you're a landlord and you're going to commit to one of these rent to own programs, you're essentially giving the renter a discount on rent every month if your condo fees go up, or you have to repair things in the unit, and the renter, which I guess would be the future homeowner, is not going to do them. Who's liable to doing that? And then what is the price you're going to set 5 years down the line? My guess is most landlords who are in this program are going to want some kind of return on the investment if they're taking, a cut every month on the rent. That's something I'm really curious to see. And I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as like, okay, here's my condo, it's a rent to own. I think they really have to take the steps to make this contractual agreement. The other thing on the flip side, on the tenant side, what if you live somewhere for a couple of years and you get relocated for your job and you no longer want to purchase this property? Are you going to owe the landlord, any kind of damages from a perspective of like, okay, you've had a discount on rent? Are you going to have to make up for that? Are you going to get the money back for the savings you've put in that down payment account? I really think this needs to be properly thought out so that it's a solution that works for both tenants and landlords that are going to make this work for the tenants to purchase that property. And ultimately, someone wants to rent a place, the landlord wants to rent a place, and the landlord wants to sell a place, and the tenant wants to buy the place. And I think that's the key. How do you get that done? And that's something they really got to figure out. If you found any value in this video, I'd love to get it out to more people just like you, trying to learn what's going on in the Canadian real estate market, and specifically in the Greater Toronto area. You can book in a call with me in the description down below. And as always, hit that like and subscribe button and follow me on all social media at Michael Ouzas Real Estate.